We were in the presence of greatness again, weren't we? My goodness. Well, probably I shouldn't preach, but I'm going to. I'll make it short.
Our scripture this morning is Psalm 100, a psalm for thanksgiving. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. For the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. The word of the Lord.
Thank you, John. It's only fitting that Scripture follow Frederica, isn't it? That was something. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now I have the unenviable task of having to follow Scripture and having to follow Frederica. I'll be all right. Because I want to talk about Thanksgiving today, and obviously we all know it's our finest of national holidays. And for many, it's a time to gather together and ask the Lord's blessing upon our families, of course, and our nation. But today also there are some disconnects, and those aren't negative, what I'm going to be sharing with you, but there are disconnects. First, originally America, I suppose everyone knows, was an agricultural nation. And so it made sense to offer thanks to God for the harvest. And not just this, it was a time also to recall the first Thanksgiving, perhaps romanticized, but nonetheless of how the original entrance into the New World, after suffering horrific loss and life on the Mayflower on the way over, and then another half of the people died that first winter. I mean, it was staggering. Half the people that left Plymouth were dead within a year or thereabouts. And so this story also, this Thanksgiving, is a time when we think about that, the sacrifices that were made, the deprivations that the people of Massachusetts suffered, and then how finally they were able to sit with local First Nation peoples who shared their provender of game and vegetable with the Pilgrims. And that too is probably a little romanticized, but nonetheless there is some historicity to it. In my grade school, I don't know if they do this anymore, but in my grade school, we would assemble and act this little drama. And in my case, kids would dress up like, we call them Indians, and other kids would be pilgrims, and there'd always be a turkey or something like that. And no, I didn't play that. It was more than lovely, and something that really helped galvanize the nation together, as a matter of fact. And again, as historically flawed as certainly this was, it remains a bedrock of our country's belief in the foundational building blocks of our nation, namely that we're to be gracious, that we're to be prayer-filled, that we're to be expansive with our own sharing of what we have. This said, however, we're now a techno-industrial nation, a society with slight connections to the land, and therefore out of touch with the primordial elements of hunting and gathering. Today, for example, we criticize those who hunt, and for those who still farm, they are under the impervious eye of the eco-police. So it's an odd world right now, even though most of us are going to have something that came from the ground and from the field on Thursday. But we're not personally involved with that anymore. So that is a disconnect, and because we no longer hunt nor gather to provide food for our own table, and have virtually no appreciation of how difficult and dangerous those efforts were, and in some respects still are. Consequently, heartfelt appreciation of giving thanks for the Thanksgiving meal is virtually impossible since we don't gather ourselves. Well, with the exception, I should say, of those who still are hunters and gatherers. Secondly, our nation is rapidly becoming a people that has no connection with the romance and rich history of the tradition of Thanksgiving. Of no fault to their own, many will eat ethnic food this Thursday, sitting down to meals imported from their lands of origin. And there's nothing the matter with that either. We seem to forget that the Irish that came after the first Thanksgiving, ate a lot of cabbage and ate a lot of potatoes and a lot of leeks on Thanksgiving. The Italians that came over ate whatever Italians eat, and the Poles that came over, they didn't sit down to turkey either. So we have to be careful not to point fingers at these new arrivals in our country who perhaps are not yet familiar with the traditional Thanksgiving fare. Things like ham, turkey. Brenda, you listening? Ham, turkey, egg noodles, mashed potatoes smothered with heart-stopping gravy. That's the best. Butter-covered corn. Right, David? You like that? Good. Pecan pie, you like that?
Yeah, I like pecan pie.
You like, wait, I'm not done. You like pumpkin pie?
Pumpkin pie.
Oh, and you like,
Yeah.
and you like whipped cream on top of it?
Oh, yeah.
All right, that's enough of liking things. All right. Sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, along with belt-loosening stuffing. All that will remain a mystery for the newer Americans. In time, hopefully, they'll be able to go to the doctor with the same